Welcome to It's a Woman's World, where we'll meet achieving women making a difference in our world. I'm Carolyn Bruna. Our guest is Mitra Mortazavi Lore, an Iranian American artist who's been residing in Montgomery County for the last 45 years. Mitra's artwork has progressed from paper collage to metal sculptures. Mitra is an activist who received the National Capital Area Peacemaker Award in 1995. Many of her artworks reflect her passion for peace. Welcome, Mitra. You're my very talented friend from Capital Speakers Club, and I'm thrilled to interview you for your work today.
Thank you very much, Carolyn. It's wonderful to be here.
Oh, you're welcome. I'm happy to have you here. Mitra, I'd like to begin with a bit of your background. I know you were born and lived in Tehran, Iran, and you studied political science because you were interested in world affairs ever since you were a child. So please tell us more about that.
Well, yes, growing up in the, I guess, 50s and 60s in Tehran, it was very interesting, and then it got more interesting even. In the 70s, we had actually, I wasn't raised in a traditional family. My parents were younger, and at that time, West was influencing Iran a lot. So we were looking all to Europe and the US for inspirations, and that was on top of, Iran has a very, very deep culture and expansive, and the literature, poetry, and goes back to thousands of years. And so on top of that, especially being young, we were exciting. Europe and US was very exciting. So we grew up in a way with many TV, especially, and movies, like you grew up in the US. So it was interesting. So
yeah,
yes.
It's amazing to hear that, because I didn't know any of that as I was growing up here in America. That's so that much of an influence in Iran, and that you had been influenced. But is that when you decided, you were talking about the 70s, and you were saying about after the 1979 revolution, is that when you came to the United States? And also, did you have any relatives here, to come to the United States?
Well, when I married my Iranian husband, my first husband, he had studied in the US. So he told me at some point I would like to go back to the US and live there. But we had many American families in Iran back then, and many Iranian younger people would go to the US universities, but they would come back because that was the happening place. So we were fine and happy and thriving. And then when the 1978 uprising started, and this was a group of people that started being against the Shah of Iran, and they wanted more, I guess, democracy and more human rights. And so when the uprising started, my husband said, well, if we want to go to the US, this is the time. So we finally arrived January of 79 at my aunt's house. My aunt and family, her family were there, and many other relatives. And my best friend from high school was here at the George Washington University getting her master's. So many people, yes, I knew that. And that was very crucial for me, to be around family and friends that I knew.
Yeah, well, especially in a new country, really.
Yes.
It was quite amazing, and to come to a new country, even though you did have relatives here. But let's turn to your artwork. When did you get into art?
As a child, I was good with my hands. And back then I didn't know, but I was very creative. But not, so that I wasn't like taking painting, very little dabble here and there. But then I also, as you mentioned, I was interested in world affairs. So
Right.
as a child, I was listening to the news, read the paper. So when it came to studying college, I studied political science because that was interesting too. And I also thought it's more cool. So
Yeah.
so that's why just as in the 70s, early 70s, I wore my miniskirts, drove my Camaro, and went and studied political science.
You were an American kid in Iran almost. Did I did you go to college in Iran or here in the States?
Yes, I did in Iran. Yes.
And that's where you studied poli-sci, political science.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
That was your major. Did you have a minor?
No, we didn't have that back then.
Okay.
But I had my eyes on foreign affairs. So I like a fantasy that I would do that. Didn't happen.
Yeah. Well, go more into your artwork for us, please. Then you were here, and go a little bit more into your artwork once you're here in America. Go ahead.
Yes. When well, here soon I had 2 children and busy working, make a living to some degree. And so I started again use my creativity and like a craft things and fashion. So I started doing those, and I was making good money. So it was very rewarding, but it still wasn't art, or I didn't see it as art. Till later on, I always strive to be better. So I was taking these classes for self-development. And so that's what started that. Yes.
Oh, good.
Yes.
And then you were saying something about, when we spoke on the phone before the show, something about you received a fax one day calling for artists.
Yes.
And you were a group of artists together doing collages. And I think, is that where your art actually took off? Go ahead, tell us about that.
Sure. It was in this class, or course, I should say, once a week we got together, and by way of making collages from just images of newspapers, magazines mostly, we would sort of see that where we were stopped in our thinking and behavior, and then by making collages, it was an opening we created. So we would move on. So one of the days that we were a group of us together, my course mates, I told them that day I received a fax, says, call for artists, calling for Iranian American artists to enter this competition. So I thought, I'm not an artist. So I brought that to my friends that evening, and I said, guys, look and see what I got. But I'm not an artist. And a friend of mine said, Mitra, this looks like you're being stopped. So why don't you make a collage and see where that would take you? I said, I don't think it's going to take me anywhere, but thank you. I take the coaching. So I started making a collage and got a poster board and started cutting some images that I liked from the magazine, and I started gluing on that. The first row of these glued images, I thought, well, I like these images, but I'm not an artist. I'm not an artist as I'm gluing them. And then second row, I said, wow, this looks good. And then second row, that was when I declared myself an artist. So
that's interesting. You got the not just the experience of collage, but you got more self-confidence in these pictures,
Exactly.
making collages.
Yes, that was very exciting. So I said, I declare myself an artist. I'm going to get into this competition, and I will get in. So
And did you get in?
I did, and another one showed up too. So two exhibitions, but group exhibitions. So it was wonderful and really changed my life. Being an artist, besides being a mother, is the best thing that's happened to me.
And so from your collages, did you say you had a mentor or not?
I started taking classes actually at Montgomery College. I wanted to take collage class. They didn't have it. I called but they introduced me to Dr. Polachek. And they said he would be using the closest to, so I started.
To a mentor for you, he was? Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Yeah, so my teachers, my professors.
Oh, that's wonderful. I know your collages are on your website. Do you want to tell people where they are, and then we'll talk a little bit about two of your collages?
Be happy to. My website is www.mitra Lore, MITRALORE.com. So once you get on the site, on the top right, there are 3 lines that will get you into the website. And so once you click on that, says sculptures, and then below that, collages or mixed media. When you click on it, then you'll see that.
Great. And I'm there now. So let's talk about the first collage we want to talk about today is in the second row, if people are looking at your website, and it's on the right-hand side, the one in a frame. So would you tell us a little bit about that particular collage? What did it mean to you? Why did you do it? Your inspiration for it?
Yes. Actually, I did that at a collage class. It was called Found Objects. So that there's a piece of metal that it's an old piece, and I found it in Jamaica on the street. So I just love like weathered metal very much. So who knows how many cars went over this little piece of metal. I have no idea what it is, but I love that piece of metal. So I took it and brought it home, and it was sitting in my workroom for how many years? I don't remember. When they said, the instructor said, find object, I thought of that. So I used it in the middle, and then collaged around it. And
oh, that's great. Yeah, I like that. And the second one I'd like to talk about is the one that's on the top. It's blue and green, and I love the idea that you said the bottom has waterfall and rose petals. So tell us a little bit about that one, please.
Yes. Actually, I did that at a collage class, and it was an art class. The instructor said, close your eyes and imagine yourself as one of the best settings that you have been. And immediately I remembered at the time, oh, this is about Maryland. With my family, we went to Deep Creek Lake. And there were many waterfalls there, and I went behind the water, and I love that area. So I thought, that's it. So I closed my eyes, and I saw the water, and then also sunshine. So that's what I painted those, and then I cut them out and created this waterfalls, and then at the bottom there are the rose petals. I decided to have rose petals on the water.
I think that's a beautiful one. Thank you so much. I know that you progressed from collages to sculptures and metalwork. So we're going to take a break now, Mitra, and then when we come back, we'll see your progression as an artist from watercolor, collages
Yes.
to metalwork and sculptures. Thank you. We'll break for a short public service announcement.
Hate is loud. It gets clicks. It gets attention. Hate, however, is actually quite small. But love is the majority, filling up something far more important than any feat. Love fills our hearts, our lives, our everyday, with understanding, empathy, and compassion, leaving hate to become what it truly is, a whisper.
Welcome back. We're speaking with Mitra Mortazavi Lore, a talented metal sculpture artist, and her artistic development from paper collages to sculptures and then working with steel. Mitra, tell us how you went actually from making paper collages to sculpting.
Yeah, it has been a great journey.
Yes.
Once I started making collages, then Dr. Bob Cohen at Montgomery College told me, okay, now you need to learn to paint and draw. So I took many classes with him. And while doing that, I also was making paper collages. And I was having shows, I was being in shows and really enjoying it. And then at some point, I noticed that my collages were becoming 3D. And I told my husband, honey, look, my collages are becoming 3D. Just as look what's happening. And he asked me, you know what's ultimate 3D? I said, no. He said, sculpture. So that was so funny and naive of me not think that way. But then I said, oh, I guess now I have to start taking sculpture classes. He said, I guess so. So I did that. And that was Mr. Polachek, my sculpture professor. But then, like every other student, you start with clay. So I made this big, beautiful bust of, I call it peaceful Persian warrior. And it was so big, and because my body wasn't used to it, I developed a tennis elbow. So, and then I had to stop taking classes altogether. And I was very sad, actually. And then one day I remembered, wait a minute, you promised yourself you're always going to be in art classes, but you're not taking classes. Like I answered, but I'm in pain. Then I remembered, while taking my sculpture class, there was one room. Most of the time, the door was closed, and they were like sparkles, and the sounds of welding was going on, and I always was curious.
So you went from one class to another class, huh?
Yes, actually, it was very close to. At the time, it was very close. They had a door in the sculpture class. So, and I remember I found it very intriguing. So I looked a little bit when people were welding, and I thought, this is not going to bother my tennis elbow. So that's how I started doing.
Is that steel? Was that steel, this welding?
It was a steel class. Yes.
So you had to learn to weld.
I did have to, and yes.
Oh gosh. You know, actually, you sent us a video, so I'd like to show that now, a video and a few pictures of you welding with your mask and your apron. Can you
Yes.
explain to us how you would use them actually?
Well, first of all, when the professor taught me how to cut steel with plasma cutter, it was so amazing to me that for me it was love at first cut. I always say. And it was like I was done. Who would think the steel can be cut so easily? So yes, and then when the rest is just joy, hard work, have to learn a lot of new things. But I was so static that I just like went on and on and on.
That's amazing that you really, so few people, artists, really work with steel. And the fact that you're saying it's so easy to cut is unbelievable. Gosh.
Well,
Yeah.
cutting, and then you have to learn how to weld and different kinds of welds. I learned them all. Yeah. But of course, it needs lots and lots of practice, like everything else.
Ah, right.
A good weld, just like you gotta like pearl next to each other. That's how you have to do that. And of course, you have to protect yourself, protect your face and mask and all that. Yes.
Okay, that's what the video that we're showing.
Yes, exactly.
Shows us. That's wonderful. Mitra, I'd like to turn to your sculptures now. I know your sculptures are also on your website under sculptures. So let's look at the sculpture called The Lion. It's one of my favorite, I have to say, of your sculptures. I love it. It is your masterpiece, you had said. So what inspired you to make this lion?
Well, I went and saw at the National Museum. It was about Natural History Museum in DC. Was about life of lions. So I was mesmerized how regal they were and how family oriented they are. The whole family lived together. Just like amazing. So and I decided, okay, then I will make a lion. And I didn't know how I want to make it. I wanted to be minimalist. The mane was the main event to me, and the tail. And the rest, it just, so at some point I went to the zoo, and actually my granddaughter was very little. So I took her to the zoo, and because grandma wanted to make a lion, so I was like, for a while, I kept studying lions. And then it took me 300 hours in the course of 9 months to do that.
Gosh, yes, lots and lots of work and lots of time, but it came out amazing. It's just absolutely fabulous, I really think, yeah. Let's turn to another sculpture. You said you have a 7-foot tall, solid pine cone. So what was your inspiration there?
Actually, a friend of mine was in Colorado and saw something similar to that. And she showed me and asked me, please make me one. And I'm just like, wow, that was like overwhelming, but I never told her, okay. But I kept it quiet, and but I started making one. And of course, my own version. And then we had pandemic, so we had to stop and then go back. And so on her birthday, I presented that. Well, finally I had to say it because it was so big that so she brought someone to take it in a truck and it's installed by a little lake in. So it is. She was delightfully surprised.
Oh, and a little lake on her
property. Yeah, it was a commission, and
yes,
yeah, everybody's very happy.
It's quite tall.
Yeah, 7 feet tall.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, yeah.
Your most recent sculpture, though, is called Woman, Life, Freedom. This is quite famous. It was shown at the Lincoln Memorial in Washington, D.C. So please give us that background.
This one is in my heart. This was, you mentioned I am still an activist, and this is
Yes.
2 years ago. Probably some people know that a very unfortunate thing happened in Iran. Just a young 22-year-old woman visiting Tehran and with her family, and her head covering was not covering all her hair, and she was pushed into a van, and with this kind of police that they're watching women, and they took her to the prison, and unfortunately, 3 days later she was dead.
Ugh.
So this, I get 2 years ago in September. It all over globally, people, millions all over the world went out. Many young people in Iran went out, and many young women started. And unfortunately, many died. Many got killed by the police.
I know. I actually remember reading that. It was terrible. Even people, I think women all over the world were influenced by that, sadly.
I call this is the first ever revolution led by women in the whole history of human beings.
Really?
And to me, this is still unfolding. I am not giving up. So it might take years, but we will.
Right. Right. Yeah. I know you're looking for a gallery to house Women Life Freedom. So if someone's watching our show and can give you some ideas of a gallery that might like to house it, please contact us.
Yes.
Don't hesitate.
Also, you know, being a Montgomery County resident for 45 years, I would love that to have, because what an artist wants to share their work, their art. And this is about freedom, which this country is about.
Right. And we're here in Montgomery County, Maryland. Absolutely.
Yes.
But, you know, there's people all over the world now that are listening to us. So perhaps they might even have a place to house your sculpture.
That would be wonderful.
Yes. I know that some of your sculptures are visible. People can see them in person. Would you say a couple places where they could see them?
Yes. When I'm not having a show, there are two of my sculptures are in public spaces. Two of them actually, two of busboys and poets, and they're both in Washington. Busboys and poets are actually created by an activist friend of mine.
Wow.
And it is about also freedom and human rights and equality.
Okay.
And one of my work is at the one at 14 and
14.
Northwest.
Yes. And the other one I do have, Costa Catholic. I want to, before we have to leave, I'd like to get you to answer, do you have any new aspirations?
Yes, my new aspiration is have a solo show with all the new sculptures and probably maybe some little old, and maybe even other art, and have a show, and then become really a professional artist.
Oh, goodness. It's not become, Mitra. You certainly are a professional artist, as we've seen.
Well, when I say professional, meaning kind of make a living out of selling my sculptures. So I have plenty of them. It means some of them takes 9 months, so I have to work hard.
Well, I know you will, and we'll look forward to seeing more of your sculptures and even some more of your collages.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mitra. It was thrilling to have you on my show. I've interviewed many artists before, but not anyone working with metal, particularly with your passion for peace through your art.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Honor.
If you know a woman who would be a great guest for our show, please email us. We're womensworldtv@aol.com. Remember, it's a woman's world. I'm Carolyn Bruna. See you next time.